You're listening to the Quint's podcast.
After a nail-biting win of just 60 to 59 votes, Naftali Bennett was sworn in as Israel's new Prime Minister on 13 June, ending former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's 12-year grip on power. Bennett, a former tech entrepreneur who made millions before switching to right-wing politics in 2013, will be leading an ideologically divided 8-party coalition. And for the first time in the country's political history, a small Arab party will also join to serve in the government. Now, some experts have labelled Bennett as an ultra-nationalist. In his speech on Sunday, Bennett said that he will work for the sake of all people, adding that priorities would be reforms in education, health, and cutting red tape. Bennett's government is Israel's broadest ever, but that also makes it unstable. The glue that was holding the coalition together was the agenda of dethroning Netanyahu, which has now been achieved. The coalition will now be challenged to find common ground on key national issues such as the policy towards Palestinians and social issues like the advancement of gay rights. So in today's episode, we dive into Israel's new leadership, an ideologically divided coalition, and what Bennett's appointment means for the India-Israel relations. To understand this, for today's episode, we spoke with former Indian ambassador and former secretary in Ministry of External Affairs, Pinak Ranjan Chakravarti, who served as a deputy chief of mission in India's embassy in Israel from 1995 to 1999. You're tuned in to The Big Story, the podcast where we dissect the headline-making news for you, and I'm your host, Himmat. Let's start with what made way for an ultra-right-wing politician like Naftali Bennett to become Prime Minister. And the story starts with his former boss, Benjamin Netanyahu. Considered as the magician of Israeli politics, Netanyahu has survived years of challenges to his power, outlasting many of his opponents and appeared politically invincible. He is the longest-serving leader in Israel's 73-year history, having won 4 elections and held office 5 times. However, his final years in office were shadowed with criminal trials for alleged corruption, charges of bribery, fraud, and breach of trust in connection to 3 separate cases in November 2019. Even during this cloud of criminal allegations, he survived yet another election in 2020 after agreeing to share power with his political rival Benny Gantz. But this show of unity went down in just 8 months, triggering yet another election. Netanyahu became a polarizing and an autocratic leader. Opposition to his leadership not only grew among his rivals, but also among other right-wing parties which are ideologically aligned with his party. This brings us to 2021, where a spectrum of parties from left to far right came together in a never-before-seen coalition to unseat Netanyahu as the Prime Minister on 13 June. Ending the Netanyahu era. Pinak Ranjan Chakravarti, who served as a deputy chief of mission in India's embassy in Israel from 1995 to 1999, says that it is not the people who voted out Netanyahu, but his rivals, which show how politically motivated the change in leadership was.
You see, one thing about Israel is that they've always had coalition governments right from the very beginning. So no party has ever got a majority in the Knesset, the Israeli parliament. Now, which brings me to the point about Benjamin Netanyahu. His party Likud got the highest number of seats, yet they could not form the coalition. I think 12 years is a long time in politics as prime minister. I think the Israelis also probably thought that, but they did vote his party in terms of giving him a majority. It's I think it's not the people that actually voted him out of power. It's the way the proportional representation system works in Israel that it throws up so many parties. Then it's left to the parties to cobble together a coalition. And in this case, I think the politicians themselves have brought him down, not the people, in my view. And so I think what is going to happen is that the coalition which has been formed is a makeshift coalition, in my view. And I don't know how long it will last.
Speaking of the coalition, let's focus on its leader and the man of the hour, Naftali Bennett. Bennett, a former commando and a self-made tech millionaire, is considered Netanyahu's protege. He served as his chief of staff from 2006 to 2008 until the pair fell out. He then served as a minister in every coalition government until 2019. Soon after, he became the leader of the Yamina, a right-wing party with only 7 seats in Israel's parliament, the Knesset, making him the only prime minister in the country's history with such a small faction. Labeled as an ultra-nationalist, Bennett is an outspoken advocate of the Jewish nation-state and for Jewish historical claims to the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Syrian Golan Heights, a territory occupied by Israel since the 1967 Middle East War. So, how did Bennett come to power in this election? It comes after a power-sharing arrangement with centrist leader Yair Lapid, the head of the Yesh Atid party, under which the latter would take over premiership in September 2023, serving for 2 years till the end of the term. With a razor-thin majority in the Israeli parliament, Bennett is now leading an ideologically divided and fragile coalition of 8 parties and includes the first independent Arab party, RAM. The inclusion of RAM and left-wing non-Arab Israeli parties means that there could be friction on issues such as Israeli policies towards Palestinians. Yamina and another right-wing party, New Hope, are staunch supporters of Jewish settlements in the Israeli-occupied West Bank. While some parties in the coalition want to advance gay rights, such as recognition of same-sex marriages, RAM, an Islamist party, is against it. Mr. Chakravarti believes that it is unlikely that Bennett will last long as a prime minister, given the fraction of seats his party possesses. He added that the coalition is a difficult proposition for Bennett, since he now has to navigate between his own ideology and of his coalition.
I think Naftali Bennett is not going to be a very long-term president, given the fact that he has only 7 seats, and the coalition itself has agreed that he will be prime minister for 2 years, and after which Yair Lapid will take over, who is a former journalist and belongs to the Yesh Atid party, and is seen to be more center-leaning, whereas Naftali is very right-wing, and he doesn't even want to acknowledge a 2-state solution to the problem with the Palestinians. So I am not sure whether he's going to last very long, and because any step that he takes which smacks of too much of anti-Palestinians, the Arabs will back out of the coalition. And it's at the drop of a hat, because the Mahmoud Abbas, who's leading the Arabs, the Israeli Arabs, who are 21% of the population. So I doubt very much if he can last very long, or even this coalition will last very long. It might just fall apart because it's a very unlikely coalition. That's the whole problem. I doubt very much there will be on the burning issues of the day, which is the Palestinian issue. I don't think this government will be able to take too many steps. They might water down, or they may not, because Naftali Bennett is going to oppose any steps which are against the interest of the Orthodox Jewish community or the settler community, and these are the triggers for the problems that Israel has been having. So either he keeps quiet, which means he will come under the pressure of the right-wing groups, or if he takes a step, then he will come under pressure from his coalition partners who don't want to take those steps. So this is a very, very difficult proposition for him. And I don't know how he will navigate, because he has to navigate between his ideology and the practical matters of governance. So either he pays it down and stays below the radar to sustain his prime ministership. But I don't know. Israel politics is very volatile, and it has got a very, very robust and pugnacious press. It's free, and so it's going to be a huge problem for Israel to settle down, with this government.
According to a CNN report, Bennett will be steering away from hot-button issues and will instead be focusing his 2 years as Prime Minister on domestic issues like cost of living and quality of life issues. The country has also not witnessed a budget being passed since 2018, and the new administration only has 3 months to enact one. Yet, the new administration will have no choice but to deal with pertinent issues, especially recent ones like the eviction of several Palestinian families in Sheikh Jarrah, which is awaiting a High Court decision. Mr. Chakravarti states that the coalition is opportunistic and the binding factor was not ideology but political interest. He believes that it is unlikely to last for this very reason.
Well, what has brought together this coalition is not obviously ideology or anything else. It is just their political interest in getting rid of Netanyahu, who they see as a person who's served long enough, and they see that he is not amenable to their demands, etc. So I think that is the main reason why they have come together. Get rid of Netanyahu is what they want, which they have succeeded. But with a very, very thin majority, I think the vote in the Knesset gave them just a one vote majority, or I think something like that. So this is a very flimsy coalition in the sense that there is no adhesion. The binding factor is missing, and so it's a coalition of basically opportunists, a kind of opportunist coalition, which is unlikely to last. It is, of course, historic, you can call it, because the first time I think the Arab bloc, as it is called, has joined a governing coalition in Israel. This has not happened before. And of course, you have the whole interface, the whole spectrum of right wing to the left wing, including Meretz and Labour. Unfortunately, the Labour, which used to be a major party, has been reduced to a very small number, I think 1 or 2 members in the thing. And Labour earlier had thrown up a lot of prime ministers in those days. So I think this is maybe historic because for the first time Arabs have joined, and historic in the sense that the spectrum is quite large from the right wing to the left. And that is why I keep saying that it's a very unlikely coalition, and maybe, and I believe it is going to be not very stable.
For India, another Netanyahu victory would have meant continued growth in bilateral ties. However, tensions hit the relations between the two countries recently when India shifted its stance on its Middle East policy in the UN Security Council meeting on 16th May, where it appeared to implicitly hold Israel responsible for triggering the recent violence by locating its beginnings in East Jerusalem rather than from Gaza. India's decades-long Israel-Palestine policy went from being unequivocally pro-Palestine to a tense balancing act. And Israel, of course, was not pleased. Netanyahu on 16th May tweeted his thanks to all countries that resolutely stood by Israel and its quote-unquote right to self-defense against terror attacks by posting all their flags. The tricolour was not among them. PM Modi has congratulated Bennett on being sworn in as Israel's new Prime Minister and deepening the strategic partnership. With new leadership in play after 12 years, how will the India-Israel relationship develop? Mr. Chakravarti weighs in.
My own sense is that relations with India are not going to be affected very much. The momentum of the relations that have been set under Benjamin Netanyahu will be maintained because I think relations sometimes, outweigh personalities when the country's interests interests converge. So I think in that sense, I would still vote for continuity in our relationship, and so the continuity, which is now more broad-based in terms of our relations, is likely to continue. And I doubt if any government in Israel, including the present one, will want to change course.
Naftali Bennett's political survival depends on his ability to forge compromises and find common ground between the different parties of his coalition. What remains to be seen is if he would succeed in doing so. If you liked listening to this episode, please subscribe to The Big Story for episodic updates. We're available on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, JioSaavn, and most of the other popular podcast streaming platforms. For other podcasts, please log on to the Quint website, and for any feedback, please shoot an email to podcast@thequint.com.
Thanks for listening. Log on to the Quint's website and check out our other podcasts.